Ladies and gentlemen, Akilah lost, obviously. It took a while because the legal system is laborious and, well, you know, if it didn't do these things, it wouldn't be as meticulous as it would like to be and get things done. So, unfortunately, it is what it is, but after losing her case against Sargon of Akkad, Akilah obviously has lost another case where Sargon sued to win back all the money that he had spent on the case, trying to prove that, yes, indeed, he followed fair use when he made the video that he made. But what am I referring to for those of you who have been living under a rock for the past 4 years? Allow me to briefly remind you of what's been going on. So, Trump won the election in 2016, as we all know, and Akilah obviously was a YouTuber who was convinced that Hillary Clinton was going to win the election, that Donald Trump was going to lose. She's very much a social justice, far-left YouTuber in the vein of a Francesca Ramsey at the time. You can imagine what she must have felt when Trump actually won and Hillary lost. And Sargon of Akkad joined bits and pieces of 2 separate videos, I believe, or many different videos of her talking about politics to make a point. In many ways, it was kind of like a YouTube poop. Akilah, butthurt at Sargon's video, decided to false flag him, which then resulted in Sargon appealing and then Akilah ultimately having to sue Sargon for copyright infringement, because this is how the law works. When a company or a person initiates a DMCA takedown, which is what Akilah did, because this is in regards to copyright, which means on the internet, the DMCA covers all of this. YouTube has to, because of the law, this is not their rules, as I will mention later on in the video, they have to take down the video. Then, the other person who is the receiver of this takedown can appeal. Now, if this person appeals and within a certain amount of days, I think it's 30 days, it might be less or more, I'm not sure. If the company or person who has initiated the takedown either does not respond or simply revokes the takedown after the other person proves in their appeal that actually they did nothing wrong, then the video is returned to YouTube back in its original form, and then that's that. However, if the other party decides to reject the appeal, then depending on what people like Sargon do, who are the recipients of the DMCA, they can either take the video down and accept the punishment, or they can sue. And that is how the law works. YouTube did not invent it. YouTube has no choice in the matter. If they decided to flaunt this, which feasibly they could, they would lose all their safe harbor provisions. Again, I mentioned all of this later on when we get into the meltdown. So anyway, Akilah sued Sargon of Akkad for copyright infringement, and on Twitter also decided to boast about how she was going to defeat this evil white supremacist, racist, homophobe, God knows what else, as you all know they like to call us, and that she didn't care that if she did beat him in this court case, that his family may be negatively affected financially and could potentially become poor as a result of this. She didn't care. Because
I don't care. They're not my kids.
Exactly. Not your kids. Not your problem. Right, Akilah? And as I mentioned before, it took many years before a verdict was finally reached because, again, things are laborious in the legal system in America and in many countries around the world. But in the meantime, she was constantly going off on Twitter boasting about how she's going to beat him. And when Sargon was banned off of Patreon, she decided in her infinite wisdom to claim that she was responsible for it. Whether or not that is actually the case, we don't really know. However, she was the one that claimed that she reported him and was glad that he was finally removed off of Patreon. More on that kind of activity from her in a little while later. But unfortunately for Akilah, the world was watching what she was saying, including the judge, who mentioned that this was one of the many reasons why she lost the case, because it was pretty clear that this was a court case that had malintent involved. She wasn't doing this because she genuinely felt that her rights had been violated in such a manner. She was doing this purely to mess with Carl, to get her own back on him, because, well, she dislikes him and is butthurt that the left lost the election and have lost several key battles in the culture war. This was purely for financial gain, purely also for popularity. She wanted to boost her failing channel, which is practically dead at this point, and she thought that if she won this court case against one of the most well-known political YouTubers that aren't left-wing, this could re-energise and inject life into her channel and her brand and maybe give her some kind of celebrity, at least within left-wing and mainstream circles. And that was among many things that swung the court's decisions in favour of Sargon. But not only that, it's pretty clear that it was fair use. She had a very flimsy case even on that, and that was probably what was the main thing thing that won it for Sargon, because it's so obviously transformative in nature, and it wasn't just one video that he took from, it was several. He didn't just re-upload her content with no commentary or anything, just as it was, without her consent. He changed it. And yesterday, the decision was announced, finally, that she was going to have to pay back all his court fees, which amounts to this: $38,785.35. Good luck paying that, Akilah. You're gonna need it. Akilah, however, was not happy, and she took to Twitter, not learning any of her lessons about keeping her mouth shut and not making anything worse, to tell us about her feelings. And we're gonna go through all of this because it's glorious to watch the meltdown. Hey, if you follow me on Twitter, you may notice that I'm being harassed by a bunch of white men today. That's because I sued white supremacists for stealing my content on YouTube in 2016. While there was no additional commentary, only cuts in order, we felt that using more than 20% of my work was unacceptable. Keep in mind, the express purpose of this white supremacist was to arouse his horde of 4chan white supremacists into harassing me. After all, this was a video of me earnestly saying I was surprised Hillary lost. Because I was. Cope, Akilah, cope. Keep on coping. I find it so funny that the language she employs is the same old stuff that they used to say, and to some extent do still say, way back in like 2016, 2014, you're a white supremacist, you are 4chan white supremacist fans, even though in real life Sargon is hated by Paul on 4chan, they don't like him, and it wasn't just taking 20% of her work. The video was barely, a minute long? Was it even less than that? It was a small percentage of your work. It was not even 20. I doubt it was even 5%. And yeah, you were earnestly surprised that Hillary lost.
That's the joke.
He was using you as an example of how out of touch you guys are. That's the point of the video. For the past 4 years, this person has made racist and sexist harassing content about me, Trey Melvin, Cat Black, Francesca Ramsey, and more for the purpose of getting his followers to harass us. He was banned from VidCon when they forged the badges and yelled over us on panels. This is a straight up lie and defamation. This is libel. This is complete fabrication. They didn't forge any badges when in 2017, Sargon and a lot of what people call skeptics, which doesn't actually exist, went to VidCon just really to meet up and enjoy it, really. And also because I guess Anita was there and they really wanted to see these SUWs in person and maybe create a dialogue. It was honest to go over there and just interact with people and create bridges, and to some extent things were done. Conversations were had. Obviously there was the spurg out from Anita, and Francesca Ramsey ended up betraying people, pretending to be nice to them and then insulting them in public and saying, idiots, these racists, I never really liked them. He's never harassed any of these people. He's not made racist content towards any of them. It's actually the opposite. They're the racists. They're the ones who go on about whiteness and how white people are bad and racist and all the racist stuff comes from white society and things like that. It's them. And never once did any of these people yell over any of the people on these panels. In fact, it was Anita. Need I play the clip again?
So I think it's a conversation that needs to keep happening, right? If you Google my name on YouTube, you get shitheads like this dude who are making these dumbass videos that just say the same shit over and over again. And like, I need to give you attention because you're a garbage human. Whatever, dude.
Sargon only says I just want a dialogue. He barely says anything. And in fact, if you want to know, they expressly agreed amongst each other to not say a word. But I guess when you're getting shouted at, to some extent, you can't help but shout back at the person. And even then, he was being very civil. If anything, Sargon is too soft with you people. You're lucky he is. Then, Carl Benjamin, the person I'm referring to, ran for office in England and was so repugnant, he said his female opponent was too ugly for him to rape, which began the police investigation and he lost. This is well documented. Actually no, he didn't say that. She, Jess Phillips, she was going on about harassment and things like that. It's the usual anti-male feminist bollocks. And Sargon said to her, I wouldn't even rape you. That's saying he would not do so. He didn't even say she was ugly. Did he make a joke about her looks at some point? Possibly. But that's not what he said. Again, this is libel. There may have been a police investigation, I can't remember. He didn't lose because of that. He lost because UKIP was destroyed by the Brexit Party. At the same time, my initial lawyers decided to quit being my lawyer because he made some major mistakes in the initial complaint, framing this copyright infringement as harassment, not as what it was and still is, copyright infringement. The judge decided to throw out the case. Cope. And it seems to me like you're throwing your lawyers under the bus, or rather ex-lawyers. I wonder why he left you. Maybe it's you. This happened in February. Then in March, the very same white supremacist decided to counter-sue for legal fees because I responded to one of these little boys harassing me, calling him a racist. He claimed my case was therefore never about copyright infringement, which it never was. You have never said in the entirety of your Twitter outbursts that this is purely about copyright. You always bring in the fact that he's harassing you, that he's a racist. You want to destroy him. This is a personal vendetta, and it always has been. You're transparent about this, and the judge can read your tweets. So today, I found out that because I responded to a racist on Twitter, I'm expected to pay this man, who is incredibly racist and terrible, $38k because I responded to racism directed at me. Months ago, I wrote YouTube the following email. Yes, she wrote to YouTube to try and get him banned off of the platform, which failed. Hopefully, as of, it still is going to fail. She has been psychotic in her efforts to destroy Carl. It's unbelievable. And again, he's not racist. He's never once said a racial comment towards her. You're expected to pay this man money because you sued him and lost. And you sued him for malicious reasons, not because your copyright was infringed, which it wasn't legally. You can go on about how your copyright was infringed, but by law, your copyright was not infringed. So stop lying and stop coping because it's not working and you're coming across as an immature little brat. And her evidence is not evidence, guys, so we can continue with her meltdown. All of this to say, I've tried to spare this drama on the timeline, but this is what the black people you like online have to deal with. No, they don't deal with this online all the time. You're lying. Stop playing the race card because you lost. And I think YouTube should also have to answer for their role in this because their policy is that you must sue to keep someone's work down. No, that's not their policy. That's the law, Akilah. That's the DMCA. If you want to blame anybody, blame, I think it was Bill Clinton, was it, that introduced the DMCA into legislation back in the late 90s, maybe year 2000, I can't remember exactly. Might have been George Bush. YouTube have to do that. That has to be their policy, otherwise they lose their safe harbour provisions. Petition the government to change the DMCA if you're not happy. And again, her evidence is bullshit. We don't need to go through it. This is what we have to deal with when the social networks don't enforce their actual policies. YouTube did enforce their policy, and ultimately, you have to sue him if you want the video to be taken down. So I'm going to not be online much today as I have a call with a new lawyer, re all of this harassment. But if you see someone harassing me, 1, don't engage, 2, screen grab and send. Yeah, I'm sure you're being harassed. And I'm sure this meltdown is helping that at all and isn't totally created to provoke people into saying things they otherwise wouldn't say rationally. Also, if anyone here has a contact at GoFundMe where he raised $120,000 for the lawsuit and at PayPal where he continues to make money, my lawyer would appreciate it. Now this is what I was referring to when I was talking about the Patreon thing. When she made that tweet where she said that she was the one who took down his Patreon, that was something that we can't really prove that she did. She could have been lying for all we know. She has been lying throughout this entire meltdown. But this is one instance when we can say, yes, this is not about copyright infringement. Because if it was just about copyright infringement, she would just appeal, surely, right? No. This is about destroying somebody because she intensely and psychotically dislikes him. She is trying to get SJWs in GoFundMe who are there, and GoFundMe, contrary to what a lot of the Comicsgate people say, GoFundMe is infiltrated and has had issues recently where things have been removed. Politically, it's not allowed anymore, and she's trying to make sure that people get in there and somehow do something about Sargon, even though the money was already raised. I don't know what they're expecting GoFundMe to be able to do at this point. And as for PayPal, that is just clear malicious attempts to make somebody's life a living hell, because PayPal is very important for a lot of people in regards to making payments online, getting paid and things like that. She's trying to ruin his life. She's trying to make him poor. She's trying to stop him from doing what he does by attacking him financially. This is malicious. Surely this is something that he can sue her over. Is there a law that she's breaking here where she's maliciously trying to destroy his life? Also, please vote so that more judges like this aren't appointed, because Richard J. Sullivan, if those of you don't know, is the guy who presided over the case. Now, this is also very important because SJWs currently are infiltrating the judicial system. They are introducing activist judges on a more frequent basis in order to stop criminals who are actually criminals where there's evidence against them from going to jail. You may think that the likes of Talcum X, Sean King, is just a meme. He's just somebody who is a joke. Well, he has a lot of political capital, but we just don't see it because he does it behind the scenes. In public, he comes across as your typical SJW, but behind the scenes, this man is making the change he wants to make, and this is what Akilah is trying to galvanise. So there we have it. Akilah lost, she's coping, she's angry, and now she's opening her mouth to further dig her own hole. And I was wondering, I was talking to people about this, and I thought, well, Obviously, she must be a bit of a rich kid, or at least somebody from a well-off family, who's always gotten what she wanted. She's been very spoiled throughout her life, and now for the first time, it seems she's actually having to deal with real failure, and she can't psychologically deal with it. So she lashes out against the person who she blames for all that failure, Sargon. When of course, all Sargon did was make a satirical video about her. He didn't really know her personally or anything like that. It was comedy. Deal with it, Akilah. But no, she had to now destroy this man because I guess she must feel destroyed herself. And she's trying to go through the whole progressive mantra of it's racist, it's white supremacist. Obviously, it's harassment. When the real harasser, and it's all projection, as we all know with the left, it is projection. The real harasser, the real racist, the real disgusting human being here is Hughes. Obviously. Also, it's pretty clear she's very stupid because she thinks that she can continue to run her mouth off on Twitter as if that's going to this time help her win her case, to make her look like a good person and make Carl look bad. When, if anything, it's the opposite. You lost your case because you ran your mouth, among other things. Shut up, Akilah. Learn some restraint. And if you do the same thing over and over again that has failed time and time and again and expect different results, that's madness. But you know what? Continue doing it because you think you know best. I'm not going to lecture you on this. Continue. It's great entertainment for us. And anyway, that's all I've got for today. Like and share the video. Make sure this gets out there as far as possible. And until next time, I'll see you all later.